Halloween is officially over, so let's talk about all the witchy books I read this season. Hi everyone, it's Kaylee and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to talk about all of the witchy, cozy, Halloween-y fall vibes books that I read in September, October, because it is officially November, which means it is officially Christmas season, and I am ready to dive into those Christmas books hard this year. But before we do that, let's talk about the witchy ones. The first one I'm going to talk about is called Witchful Thinking by Celestine Martin, and it is actually book one in the, I think it's called Elemental Magic series, Elemental Witches, something like that. And I did have a hold on book two and I was gonna read it, but after I read book one, I just decided that I wasn't as into the series as I wanted to be, and there were so many other witchy books that I wanted to get to this year that I just decided not to finish it. This one was interesting in that the male main character was a mermaid, which is not usually something that you see a whole lot in witchy books. They usually tend to be other witches or mortals or something like that. So it was the first time I had seen a mermaid. So that really piqued my interest when I first picked up the book. But I just found that the book slogged a lot. And there was like a backstory with her, the main character's cousin who was getting married. And I just found myself really disliking the cousin. And so when I found out that the second book was about her, because her marriage didn't go through, I think, at the end of the first book, when I found out that the second book was about her, I decided that I wasn't going to continue the series, because if I didn't really like her in the first book, I didn't anticipate liking her anymore in her own book. So that's why I decided to finish this series. But I did give this book a 3 stars with 2 spice. It wasn't great, but it wasn't the worst book. Halloween wasn't the worst book I read this year, but it just wasn't great enough for me to want to continue on with the series. Next up is The Witch is Back by Sophie H. Morgan, and this one is a standalone book. So it's not in the series. I don't know if the author is planning to make it a series in the coming times, but as of right now, it's a standalone book. It was actually very good. It was a second chance romance, and it was about a betrothal between best friends that went wrong, and he left without telling anybody why. And then because of circumstances with his family, he ends up coming back, and they try to repair their relationship. And I actually really enjoyed it. I thought that it was a really good story. I thought that the witch lore was really good in it, and I was really happy with it. I gave it 4 stars with 2 spice. I definitely recommend it. The next ones I read are the Fix It Witches series by Anna Garay, and there are 3 books in this series. There is Witch Please, Boss Witch, and Extra Witchy, and there's also a standalone 4th book called The Only Purple House in Town. And that one is set in the same world, but it is not part of the original series. I'm not going to dive too much into these because I did do a ranking video early this week about it, and I will link that up in the corner now so you can check that out. But I loved this series. Almost every one of these books was a 4 or 5 stars. The first 3 books did have some spice, only like a 1 or a 2, nothing heavy. The 4th book had no spice in it at all. But I really enjoyed this series. I am definitely going to be picking up more of Anna Garay's books. I don't know if she has any more with like this cozy fall vibes in them anymore, but I do have another one of her series that I have in paperback on my TBR cart that I want to pick up next, that I want to start next year, and I'm going to definitely be looking at her back catalog because I really enjoyed her writing and I really enjoyed these books. The next one is a series called Uncanny Romantics, and it's by Lish McBride. The first book is called A Little Too Familiar, and the second book is Rough Around the Hedges, and I really enjoyed these. I knew nothing about these going into it other than that it was a witch was the main character of the first one, and the male main character of the first one was a werewolf actually. And so I really enjoyed the lore, like the entire world, the witch lore in this one was so good. This first book had like a little bit of mystery and intrigue with his family. They were in jail and then they escaped, and then like it was a whole thing, and I can honestly say I really enjoyed it. So I was really excited to read the second book, and it was just as good, but 100% different. Like this one, these books were like night and day. Whereas the first book had a little bit of mystery and a little bit of intrigue going on it with this back story about the male main character's family. The second book was like a warm and gentle hug, and it's about the two male and female characters are best friends, and you meet them in the first book. They are the roommates to some of the other ones. The male has been in love with the female for quite a few years, and she was in denial. They get together really quickly. She's trying to get her some sort of witch test thing done. I can't remember what it was called in this book, so that she can become a hedge witch. But her dad, who is like a huge jerk, doesn't want her to do this because he thinks that hedge witches, which are like, if I'm not mistaken, hedge witches were more like potion makers and like things like that. I don't know why they call them head witches. I didn't ask. Well, it didn't really explain why they called them that. But he thinks that those type of witches are beneath him because he's like the academic witch. And so he's really against her becoming a hedge witch. So it's about her trying to get her test proved so she can go to school for this, and then her best friend they end up falling in love. And it is like the cutest, sweetest book. It is so different from the first book, but they are both so good. I recommend this series. If she writes more from this series and more in these worlds and characters, I will definitely be reading them. I am really hoping for a book between Juliet and Bay because I think that they would be the cutest couple. They haven't gotten together yet, but if that is going to be book 3, I am all for that. And if you don't know who they are because you haven't read the series, you need to read the series. Just read it. Even though Halloween is over, pick up this series if you can find it. I really, really enjoyed it. I gave both books 4 stars with 2 spice. Next up, I read This Spells Disaster by Tori Ann Martin, and this is a sapphic romance. It is a setting, both of them are witches. One of the females is she does like potion making and like beauty products, like that type of thing. And the other one is like actually like a world champion spellcaster. Like think of like the Olympics, but for witches. Like that's what she is, like the world champion of. But she wants out of that world, and they end up meeting, and there's like this, they go to like this witch outdoor festival that sounds so freaking cool. I want it to be real, and I want to exist in this world. So I love when these witch books like make their own lore, and they're really good at explaining them. I find it hard when they just like throw you into the witch lore and you have no idea about it. But when they gradually ease you in, that's when I end up falling in love and wanting to exist in these worlds. And this one was no exception. I gave the book 4 stars. It was only a 1 for spice, but it was still really, really good. And the last one I read is book 3 in April Asher's Supernatural Singles series. This one actually doesn't release yet. It actually doesn't release till April, but I knew I had to read it in the midst of my cozy, witchy vibes. And so this one is about Sister Olive. If you want to check out the first 2 books in the series, they are already out. But book 3, this one, Not Your Crush's Cauldron, it doesn't release until next year. So if it's not on your TBR, you need to add it because it was so cute. I was a little iffy about the first 2 books. Like I read them and I enjoyed them, but I think they were only like 3 stars for me. I couldn't, like I wasn't as connected to the characters as I was. But in this one, I was so connected to Olive. And Bax is a tatted and pierced guardian angel. He has wings. He is like the epitome of like supernatural book boyfriends. I didn't know I needed a Baxter in my life, but now that he's here, he is never going away. Like he is the perfect supernatural boyfriend. And like the guardian angel thing was different and unique as well. It's not usually a common supernatural character that you see, so I was really excited. I'm anticipating a 4th book in the series, but that hasn't been confirmed, with their best friend Harper, who is like a succubus, I think she is. She's like a sexual demon, I think is what they refer to it as, and as well as another friend of theirs who I believe is a shifter. They don't call them werewolves because they transform into different characters, but the triplet in the first book ends up with a wolf shifter, and there's been lion shifters and all things, and I think that she's gonna end up with one of the shifters. But overall, like, this series really took off for me with book 3. So if you're interested, give books 1 and 2 a try. But if you're not quite with them, I wasn't either, but book 3 definitely hits better than the other 2. Those are all the Witchy books. It's not as many as I normally read. I DNF'd a few of them, and I just couldn't get into the lore. And then there were a few that I bought physical copies of that I just didn't get the chance to read, so they are definitely on my TBR for next year. There was another book series that I was really excited to read this season, and that was the Witches of Thistle Grove series by Lana Harper. I read book 1 last year. It was a sapphic romance, and I loved it. So when I found out that she had continued the series, I was really excited to read them. I was desperately waiting for this year so that I could dive in the midst of my Witchy season. And while I've heard good things about book 2 as well, I haven't heard good things about book 3. There's a non-binary character in it, and I've heard from non-binary content creators and reviewers that that non-binary character was not handled very well, not written very well, not treated very well, especially by the other main character in the book. And so that turned me off from reading the rest of the series. I'm gonna consider it again for next year. I'm gonna do a little more research into the book and read some more reviews and things like that. But I decided that I didn't want to give it a try this year. I just wasn't ready to do that. So I never ended up reading any more of them. I did really enjoy book 1. I love a good sapphic romance, especially when it's like a witchy one. And I was really excited to continue on with the series. So maybe I will give it a try again next year, but no promises. So those are all of the Witchy books that I read this Halloween. Now, I'm just that weird person who only reads Witchy books during the Halloween season, so September, October. So now it's November, and I'm like firmly implanted in my Christmas book season. Is it weird Christmas book season? And I've already got a list of Christmas books. There will be a video coming with all the Christmas books that are on my TBR list. But if you have any like witchy, cozy, fall, Halloweeny vibe books that I can add to my TBR for next September, October, hit me up, leave them in the comments below. I am always welcome for I'm always down for new books to add to my TBR. I love getting recommendations for fellow readers and some of my listeners and watchers. So yeah, if you have any recommendations, leave them in the comments below. If you read any of these books and you enjoyed them, let me know in the comments below as well. But yeah, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Bye.